we are on the start page, and we see that the audio I/O song that I created is now at the top of the recent files. So I'm going to single click that to open it. And I want to take a quick look around the main areas of the interface. So this is the main workspace. We see the bar numbers across the top going from left to right, and that's the time base that you'll recall that we chose. We could see minutes and seconds or frames if you're working with video, but we're working with bars. And we see the tracks and channels lined up along here, and we just have this one default instrument called up, the piano sound. Now, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is the inspector, and we can get to it by hitting F4 on the keyboard, and that'll toggle that side panel open or closed. And we can also hit this I button over here. And this shows a variety of parameters relating to the track that's selected. And if there are events on this track, like if I had recorded some of this MIDI piano, there would possibly be additional settings relating to the event. Now we're seeing a reduced set of parameters here based on, you'll recall that we have this basic set of controls that are available. And I'm going to open it up to customize it, just to show you how this works. We're in the basic set, and we have the different areas that we can include or exclude components from appearing. And there's the inspector, and we're on an instrument track. So if I, let's say, introduce that, you'll see an additional parameter came into effect. And there I've got note effects now and routing. So that's available here for routing for this instrument, for MIDI input in the channel and so on. And they're not in the basic set, but let's say I decide I want to customize it and I want retrospective recording and note effects, but I don't really need routing. I can then save this by clicking this and save it and restore it as a user-defined set. And I can rename it, delete, and so on. Or I can revert, and it's got some user-defined versions that are unsaved because I haven't saved them, but I've been experimenting. But let's just stick with basic for the moment. So that's the inspector, and F4 will toggle it along with that. Now here at the bottom, we see the console view, and we get to that by hitting F3. And that toggles it open or closed. There's a resize handle here. We can resize it like that, and there's different components that we can view or hide. This is a short view. That's a tall view. This is a skinny view, and that's a wide view. Over here, we see different view of the metering going in. And then over here, we see the output channels. You recall I created those two headphones and the main outputs, so we can hide or reveal those there. Here we get external devices, and I have that one keyboard that you'll recall that we set up. I can see it there. Here I get the instruments that are loaded in this song. So far, it's just this one instrument, Presence, that was loaded by default on this track when I called up the Smart template. And then here we have different scenes for storing different snapshots of mixer setups. We'll get to all this later in the series. Groups and channel configurations. There's different views here that we can use and so on. I'm going to hit F3 to hide it. Now the next view is the editor or edit view. And we're going to hit F2 to open that. And here we get a resizable pane at the bottom. And we're looking at score notation. There's different views here. There's the name of my song and my artist profile. These are all just set up by default. There's even a printer view. And we can get to the different edits over here, or editors here. So this is the main piano view. If we had notes here, we can edit note pitch, length, duration, velocity, and so on. We can edit MIDI controllers, pitch bend, aftertouch, and others. Here we have a dedicated drum editor for when we're working with drum kits, and we can edit and create notes and work with drum mappings and so on. And then here's the notation that we looked at originally. And again, there's a little inspector here that updates depending on which pane is selected. So I'm going to hit F2 to close that. Now we can toggle these main views with these buttons over here. Here's Edit, and that'll open and close it, and Mix to open and close the console. And then the browser, which is open by default here, we can toggle that open or close like that. But we can also use the shortcut F5 to open it and close it. And here we have different views. This is a home view where you can jump to these different pages in the browser, or we can get to them by clicking on these tabs. For example, here, instruments, and we can sort by file or folder or vendor name, and there's some settings and so on. And then we have effects plugins that we can, again, sort by vendor, file, or flat list, and different ways of looking at them. These are just visual kind of database view options. And then there's loops that are available. And then we have a file browser to search the volumes on our hard drive for files that we might want to drag and drop and bring in. And then there's an audio pool browser that we're not viewing now. I'm going to drag here and resize and bring that out more. And we get to the pool, and that shows what's used in the song. And currently there's just this one instrument, but we'd see any audio files and or other instruments that are used. And you can access the cloud for Presonus Sphere and Exchange, and then the shop for buying things. And we can get to all of these by shortcuts as well. So F5 will toggle the browser open or close, and it'll open to whatever was the most recently used tab. It's not necessarily the home tab. So F5 toggles the browser to the most recently viewed tab. F6 will jump directly to instruments. F7 goes to effects. F8 goes to loops. F9 goes to files. And F10 goes to the pool. Now at the bottom, we have some transport controls with counters, transport mechanisms, metronome, recording settings, time signature, tempo, and so on. And at the top, we have some tools and then quantizing, snap, nudge, other basic functions. And these can be customized. If I right-click here and go to Customize, I get the customization window. And if I just toggle it for a moment to complete, you'll see that got a lot bigger. And that one did as well, but I'll go back to Basic for the moment. And then we can also align this, let's say to the left, so you have more space here, or align it to the right or center. And the default is center. And we can customize here as well. And one last F key to show you, F1 will call up the internal help documentation. I don't have mine installed currently, and I have the option to install it, of course. And one little bonus power user key command I want to show you. Let's say you've got several of these open. I've got, let's say, the browser, the inspector, this, and I want to close them all. I can hit Shift F12 to close everything at once, and that'll reopen them again. It'll toggle it. And just F12 alone will open or toggle any floating windows, and there aren't any currently. All right, if you've hung around this long, I'm going to show you some more power user key commands. Now, F2, we know, will open the editor. We can also use this to detach it and then freely resize it as we want. And then we can reattach it using this downward pointing arrow. And once it's detached, we can also pin it so that it'll stay on top. And we can use this to go to full screen mode and then just use Escape to revert back. And I'm going to hit X to close it. But the power user tip is F2 will open it. And if we go Command F2, that'll toggle the detached version of it. And that's Control F2 on Windows. Now, same thing works with console view. F3 is the console. We can easily detach it like this, and then we can go full screen if we want. I'm going to hit Escape to go back and use that to go back to the docked version. And then we can go Command F3 to toggle the detached version. And that's Control F3 on Windows. So F1 will open the help documentation. F2 opens the editor, and Command or Control on Windows with F2 will toggle the detached version of the editor. F3 opens the console. Command with F3 or Control on Windows toggles the detached version of the console. F4 will open the inspector. F5 to F10, the respective browser views. F12 will toggle floating windows if there are any, and Shift F12 will toggle all the open optional views.